The blue light of the phone screen cast a spectral glow across Alex's face in the pre-dawn darkness. His thumb scrolled through an endless cascade of emails, each subject line a fresh demand. A reply sent at 2:17 a.m. Another at 4:02 a.m. His digital presence was a vigil without end. By the time the sun crested the city skyline, he was already on his third conference call, his voice a practiced, steady calm belying the frantic pace of his thoughts. His identity had become a series of instant responses, a manager perpetually on call, his value measured in his immediate availability. Later, hunched over a complex quarterly report, the deep focus he'd mustered shattered as his office door swung open without a knock. Sarah from marketing needed a sign-off on a font choice. He gave it, a swift, distracted nod, and she vanished as casually as she had appeared. An hour later, it was Mark from logistics, phone in hand, asking if he'd seen the draft proposal sent 10 minutes prior. When Alex suggested a minor strategic pivot, Mark's response was a dismissive shrug. "It's fine, we just needed a quick yes. You're always here, so we figured we'd just run it by you." The words landed not as a compliment but as an indictment. His constant presence had rendered his opinion commonplace, his guidance an expected, low-value commodity. The encounter left a bitter taste, and his mind drifted back to a university seminar, the air thick with dust motes and the weight of history. They had been dissecting Machiavelli's The Prince, and the professor spoke of Cesare Borgia, the Duke of Valentinois. Borgia, a man who understood the theater of power, cultivated an aura of formidable authority by being a rare spectacle. He rarely appeared in public, and when he did, it was with calculated ceremony. The people's imagination, fed by his absence, painted him larger than life. Fear and respect were not born from familiarity, but from mystery. Alex recalled a specific anecdote. A rebellion had festered in a small town under Borgia's control. Instead of rushing to the scene, he vanished from public view entirely. For weeks, rumors swirled. Was he gathering a terrible army? Was he planning a brutal example? The anxiety of his absence did his work for him. When he finally reappeared, it was with a quiet, devastating finality that crushed the uprising without a major battle. His power was not in his constant oversight, but in the potent, fearful space his disappearance created. The memory was a stark, painful contrast to the scene in his own office. Where Borgia's distance amplified his authority, Alex's over-accessibility was eroding his. He was the manager who was always there, the approval that was always given, the opinion that was always available. He had made himself a convenience, and conveniences are used, not revered. The moment of crystalline realization came later that afternoon. A junior associate, Liam, rushed in with a finalized project plan, a document that represented weeks of work. "Just need your approval to send it up the chain," Liam said, barely containing his excitement. Alex, wanting to be supportive and efficient, scanned the document and gave his immediate, enthusiastic endorsement. He expected a look of gratitude, a shared moment of accomplishment. Instead, Liam simply nodded, said a flat thanks, and walked out, already typing on his phone. The approval, given so freely and so quickly, was met with utter apathy. It held no weight, carried no significance. In his quest to be indispensable by being always available, Alex had made himself entirely dispensable. The throne of his authority was not being challenged. It was being ignored because he was always standing beside it, inviting anyone to take a seat. The sting of that apathetic thanks became a catalyst. Alex spent the weekend not catching up on emails, but buried in research, his laptop glowing with tabs on behavioral psychology and the mechanics of perceived value. He devoured studies on the fear of loss and the magnetic allure of the unattainable. He read about a celebrated tech CEO, once a media darling for her radical transparency, who had slowly diminished her own influence by live tweeting every minor decision and internal debate. Her constant, unfiltered presence had demystified her, turning strategic leadership into a mundane, public stream of consciousness. Her value had plummeted not because her decisions were poor, but because she had made the process of making them utterly common. On Monday morning, Alex began his own quiet revolution. His first act was to set an out-of-office auto-reply, not for a vacation, but for his new, strictly enforced deep work blocks. His calendar, once a chaotic mosaic of back-to-back meetings, now featured large, intimidating blocks of color-labeled time labeled unavailable. He prioritized a single, complex problem each morning, silencing notifications and closing his door. The first time a team member knocked. During one of these blocks, Alex did not yell or look annoyed. He simply pointed to a small, elegantly printed sign on his door that read, "In deep focus, please email or schedule time." The team member, a young analyst named Chloe, blinked in surprise, her request dying on her lips as she retreated from the closed door. Frustration was the initial chorus from his team. Emails that once garnered replies in minutes now went unanswered for hours. A non-urgent all-hands meeting was scheduled, and Alex, after a brief review of the agenda, politely declined the invitation, citing a prior commitment to a strategic planning session. The ripple of annoyance was palpable. He overheard snippets in the break room. "He's too busy for us now, and guess we're not important enough." But a subtle shift began the following day. Chloe, unable to get a quick answer, was forced to work through the problem herself. When she finally presented her solution to Alex during a scheduled 15-minute slot, it was more refined, more thoroughly considered than her usual work. She sought his counsel not for a quick fix, but for validation of a well-formed idea. Her demeanor was different. The casual entitlement was gone, replaced by a genuine, measured respect. Alex wove these psychological threads into his understanding, recalling the strategy of a reclusive musical artist he admired. The artist released albums only once every 5 or 6 years, offered no interviews, and maintained a near-mythical silence. Each new release was not just an album, it was a cultural event, an artifact of immense desire precisely because it was so scarce.